Body, this is Lorelia. It's been a while since I've did a YouTube live, but I am here to give you a message. And that's why I titled this video "The Business of Being Poor." And the reason why I titled this video "The Business of Being Poor" is because a lot of people do not realize that there is a lot of money that is made with keeping people in a particular financial state. What do I mean by that? There are people who experience financial hardship, and unbeknownst to them, they really want out of that situation. Nobody who is hurting financially wants to be there. But unfortunately, we live in a society that there is so much money that is made with giving, that is so much money being made by other people with keeping people poor. And what happens is that if you are in a cycle of financial hardship, financial setbacks, you come from a family of that, and you can't seem to understand how this world works when it comes to moving forward financially. If you do not allow yourself to expand and access information and be open to really get rid of everything that you've learned about how money is earned, how people make money, how you can make money, what happens is you will be in that constant cycle. And the flip side of that is that those who do make billions and billions and billions of money from individuals who are financially destitute or what have you will always be in that cycle. Now that I've said all that, let me give you an example. Everything that I talk about is real life stuff. It is not a rehash of what I've heard people say, which is why I can always continue to talk about this topic. On a regular basis, I get people who come to me in regards to their credit. Just yesterday, I had an old friend that I grew up with. We're no longer friends now. It was her younger sister who reached out to me on Instagram. I used to be friends with her older sister, and we're connected on social media, what have you. She's moved, out of state or what have you, and she reached out to me and said, she DM'd me and said, "Hey, can I speak to you, for a second?" And so most of the time when I haven't heard from a person in a long time and they do reach out to me, it's usually about credit, because most people know that I talk about the subject matter of credit. And so before we, touched base with, who's living, who's dead, this, that, and the other, because she did tell me that someone that we grew up with had recently passed away. She continued telling me that, then we went into the credit question. And so she shared with me, she said, I'm trying to raise my credit score and I want to know, what do I need to do? And I said, oh, okay, because she told me she was in the market to buy a car. And I told her, I asked her, I said, well, what is your credit score now? And she told me her credit score was 700, over 700. And I said, well, you already got, a $700, a 700 credit score. Why would you, that's a very good, because they say the average in America is, a high 600s. And I said, that's a relatively, but here, pay, no credit. I'm not sure what you mean, King T. So, and I asked her, well, why would you need to raise your credit score? And she went on to explain to me that she wanted to buy a car, and not too long ago she had tried to buy a car, and she got denied. And I gave her some tips on what she needed to do to raise her score, because really it was because her utilizations were high. It wasn't too much stuff on a derogatory level. It was because of her utilizations. And I told her, what she should do, and that if she does that, her score will go higher. But let me proceed, and the reason why I bring that up is to not boast that she has a high score. But what I did explain to her, and this is what I see very common with a lot of people. Many people have high credit scores, and they don't really know what that is worth. Um, and so what happens is they believe that they need to go higher. So that's what she's like, oh, my credit's not that bad. I want to know what I could do to get to an 800. And see, what's interesting is that, all right, I'm back. My phone dropped, and I don't really want to hold it because then I'm going to have to, let me flip it. I'm going to have to shorten it video, and I don't want to shorten the video because I want to really get this message across. So I guess I will hold it because I can't get this thing to stay on the window. So okay. So what was I saying? Going back. Oh yeah. So they don't know what to do with the credit, and so what happens is that they are trying to get to a place with understanding how this world works, and in terms of finances, the monetary system, or what have you in America. And so they're thinking that if I just raise my credit score, everything will be okay. And that's only one piece of it, because it's like I said, like I explained to her, the credit score that you have now, you will have no problem with getting a new car. I said, I know people that I've worked with that have a score in the 600s, and they can get a credit. I mean, they can get a car, they can get approved for a car. And then I started to give her some resources on our ways that she can be able to purchase this vehicle. And many of those sources that I gave her, she was not aware of. And it goes back to the business of being poor. See, what people don't understand is that there is a whole industry who know your psychological habits better than you, based on historically where individuals come from, what they've been, what they've have access to, what they've been able to obtain. And the fact that they know that you having a better credit score is not going to have you to knock those barriers down if you do not have the right education. And that is the other piece that nobody is willing to understand. And that is why when I started this video, I said that if you come from a background where you face financial hardship, financial destitute, or what have you, just because you've raised your credit score does not mean that you now have access to information. Which is why I always get calls from people who have a credit score in the 700s and they don't know what to do with it. I can tell you right now, I know people who have credit scores in the 600s, and they are doing massive stuff. And it's all because they have access to information that other people don't have. And that is why you will meet people who will have a credit score of over 700, and they're like a bird sitting on a branch, thinking that, oh, if my score just goes a little higher, then I'll get access to what it is that I want. And like I told her, and I'm going to call this out. I say, in the state that you live in, she lives in a southern state. I'm just going to say it. She lives in Georgia. See, it goes back to understanding historically where you're at. I said the usury laws. What are the usury laws? The usury laws are laws that pertain to how credit can be extended to consumers in that state. Every state has their own usury laws. I find that the usury laws in the state of Georgia will keep you financially shackled. Thank God for social media, because now there are individuals who live in a lot of those southern states. What I find, many of the people who reach out to me are individuals who live in the southern states, who live in the Bayou region of the South, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, or what have you. The usury laws of those states are horrendous to consumers. And the flip side of it is that getting access to credit education is pivotal. And of course, I believe credit education, monetary education, financial education is pivotal in general, but in those states in particular. Not that I'm going to say that New Jersey is a bed of roses, but the usury laws are not that horrendous. We do not have title loan companies and what is those other things they have in the South? Title loans. We do have payday loans, but they're not, the way they have to market to consumers is not as out in the open is what I've seen in a lot of those southern states. So why do I say all this? Why do I say all that? There's big business. There is a big business of being, for individuals to be poor. And I don't care who is in the government. This is not a talk about Democrat or Republican. Those institutions that keep individuals in a cycle of poverty will always continue, because those institutions mean that person cannot have to. It is pivotal that you get access to education. If you do not, what you are going to face is that you are going to always be on the rat wheel of thinking, I have to get a higher credit score. I have to get a higher credit score. If you don't know what to do with a higher credit score, what's going to happen is that you are going to stay in the cycle of debt and what have you. And don't get me wrong, I've did videos on how you can leverage debt. But what I find is that if you do not have the knowledge, because I've said this before, there is a level of knowledge and understanding that you have to have in order to be able to leverage debt and leverage credit to build wealth. If you are only using debt to obtain a consumer item, then you are going to be in a cycle. Now, the fact that this girlfriend of mine, her sister who reached out to me, she is not a client of mine. I didn't really go into the purchasing habit of what she was obtaining, which was a car. That is a consumer purchase. Could you possibly leverage a car to be able to create income for yourself. Yes, if you, decide that, hey, I'm going to use this car to start my, business where I am delivering food to people, which I see very common on social media now with the people that cook food or desserts or pastries, and you want to write all those, those miles off. And so now that car becomes a business asset where you are now using that consumer purchase to now be part of your business. And so now that you have that car and it's part of your business, you can now write off the depreciation of the vehicle. You can now write off you having paying for any type of upkeep for the car, the gas or what have you. I'm not going to go into